The first season ended with Wolfsburg finishing third in the league, securing a spot in the next Champions League. The Swiss coach had an excellent debut season in professional football, and now he's set to begin a new season with the opportunity to make transfer based on his technical and tactical needs. Before the season kicks off, however, his assistant coach is called to take over at Bellinzona in the Swiss second division. Peralta now faces the first challenge of the new season, finding a new assistant. Among all the names that cross his mind, only one stands out. Someone who was his former teammate, a player with extensive international experience, and someone who can help manage the dressing room. Gareth Bale, who in this universe made his mark at Wolfsburg before moving to Real Madrid, immediately offers his full support to the coach. Although he has no coach experience, he brings plenty of leadership skills to the dressing room. As the transfer window opens, the squad available to them looks like this. Some players are still on loan, while others will need to be loaned out. Despite being in the Champions League, Peralta doesn't want to build an overly deep squad with 30 players. Instead, he prefers to have one or two alternatives per position. A risky choice, but one that aims to maximize every player's potential. The first task is to make money by selling players who have returned from loan. Rogerio has reached his peak and can be sold. This season, Peralta will focus on Roth and keep Cotta as an alternative. The relationship between Peralta and Jonas Wind has soured, so the Dane is put on the market to raise funds and bring in a better suited replacement for Peralta's style of play. Kevin Paredes, whose contract is expiring, wants a renewal, and he is immediately rewarded with a pay increase and a promise of more playing time. Captain Maxi Arnold's contract is extended as well, though without any change in salary. Meanwhile, Peralta had already sent his scouts to search for young talents suited to his playing style, especially in attack. The two names that stand out are Alejo Velits and Luis Kumas. The latter, a Welsh player, is strongly recommended by Gareth Bale, who has seen him play many times and believes he could be a future star. Feyenoord then approaches Wolfsburg with an offer of over 12 million for Kaminski. The Polish player, recovering from an injury, wasn't outstanding last season, and the left-wing position could certainly benefit from a new addition. At the same time, good news arrives from the youth scouts. 15-year-old Kilian Schreiber looks highly promising and is signed, as well as a striker Jan Walter and the incredible Leo Bohm. Just 15 years old, Bohm is a midfielder who can contribute both offensively and defensively with enormous potential. Peralta places the highest hopes on him, and perhaps he could even be the future captain of Wolfsburg. Central defender Marvin Langer is added to the youth team, which is completely overhauled. The first tournament starts off well with a penalty shootout win against Leverkusen, followed by another excellent match against Bremen, which is unlocked by an unstoppable Leo Bohm. The youngsters are showing great promise, but Peralta continues focusing on his first team, saying goodbye to Kaminski despite the low transfer fee. Dardai still doesn't convince the coach and is loaned out to Burnley for another year, where he can improve. Jeno Pejcinovic is also sent on a one-year loan to Hamburg, and Vaclav Černý, after a disappointing year at Rangers, is sold at a bargain price to Mallorca. Bernau, who found little playing time last year, will have no place in the squad with Moritz Jens returning after a great season in Mainz. He sold for 7 million to Bournemouth. Schulze sold to Poland, and with the funds raised from this transfer, Peralta is ready to welcome the first signing of the new season. Alejo Velits, a young Argentine striker, scored 9 goals with Espanyol last year. He's seen as a great prospect and a solid sub for Mecha, both physically and technically. Meanwhile, the youth scouts find another good prospect, Lenny Gash, a 16-year-old left-footed player who looks highly promising, as does the young striker Oliver Weber. As announced, Rogerio leaves Wolfsburg and is sold to Stuttgart for nearly 9 million. Jonas Wind also departs the club, transferred to PSV for a staggering 22 million, almost covering the cost of Velits' acquisition. Young Amoako, not part of Peralta's plans, is sold to Damac for just over 1 million, while the promising midfielder Ordóñez chooses a loan move to Sporting Lisbon. The pre-season tournament is played in Italy, and the team passes through the matches without major issues, with the second match even seeing 5 goals scored, and the final against Cosenza ends in a 3-0 victory. While in Italy, Peralta runs into an old acquaintance from German football, striker Joel Pohjanpalo, recently relegated with Venezia, and decides to bring him to Wolfsburg as an experienced substitute for Thiago Tomás. But Pohjanpalo isn't the only signing, as few hours later, the replacement for Kaminski on the left wing arrives. Mihailo Mudryk, a highly talented player, was bought for around 70 million euros by Chelsea a few years ago, but never quite lived up to his potential. After a couple of disappointing seasons in England, Mudryk finds a calmer environment in Germany, with less pressure in a league he feels will allow him to finally shine. Part of this investment is covered by the sale of Patrick Wimmer, who is set to join the Premier League at Tottenham after accepting a generous offer without hesitation. Wolfsburg accepts Tottenham's €40 million bid and decides to purchase Lewis Kumas for the same position. However, as Peralta explains in his press conference, the young Welshman will be a backup to Costinha, who will take the starting spot this season to justify the €10 million investment made in last year. This is the starting lineup for the first match of the season, a young squad that will give every player a chance to show their worth in order to increase their value and eventually sell them for higher fees to improve the club's infrastructure and the team's composition for the following year. The league kicks off with a match against Bayer Leverkusen, one of the last season's toughest opponents. Costinha immediately finds Mecha, who shoots with his outside foot, and the rebound falls to Mudryk, who scores to make it 1-0 on his debut. Just before half-time, Mecha enters the area and assists Tomáš, who taps it easily to make it 2-0. In the second half, Leverkusen tries to respond with Gnonto, but his shot is saved by a great stop from Grabara. Then, the cannibal Gyökeres is sent off for a foul on Ugrinic, effectively sealing his team's defeat. Wolfsburg has started the season in great form, and Filip Ugrinic, man of the match, immediately shows that Wolfsburg means business this season. Meanwhile, abroad, Milan signs Lucas Hernandez, reuniting him with his brother Theo. As the transfer window nears its close, Wolfsburg is preparing to face Hamburg at the Volkswagen Arena, with the fans eagerly anticipating the match. The Wolves are full of enthusiasm, and just 5 minutes in, with a brilliant backheel pass, Mecha sets up Tomáš, who scores to make it 1-0. Soon after, Costinha wins the ball back, passes to Ugrinic, who exchanges with Mayer, and the Croatian launches into the box. Tomáš makes a clever assist for Mecha, who scores with a first-time shot to make it 2-0. It's a fantastic performance from Wolfsburg, and later they score a third goal with a delicate chip from Tomáš, and then a fourth from the penalty spot with Mecha's special ability. In the final moments, Hamburg scores twice, first through Selke and then the Frenchman Dompe, who also chips the goalkeeper. The match ends 4-2 in a triumph for the Wolves, but those 2 goals conceded frustrate Peralta and Bale, who know they need to improve defensively. Meanwhile, the youth team continues to impress in their new tournament, playing beautiful team football and scoring great goals, eventually reaching the final. Unfortunately, they lose a tough match against Borussia Mönchengladbach. On the final day of the transfer window, Fabrizio Romano confirms that Heung-min Son is moving to Manchester United. About 2 weeks later, Wolfsburg faces Heidenheim away, following training sessions focused on maintaining concentration for the full 90 minutes. There is much anticipation for Wolfsburg's performance at the Voith Arena, especially for the strikers. Unfortunately, the match is tightly contested, and it's not until the 90th minute that the substitute Pohjanpalo manages to win the ball and set up Thiago Tomáš, who finishes with composure to give Wolfsburg the 3 points. It's a solid but not flawless performance from Peralta's team, which played a rather dull match, possibly with thoughts already on a certain famous tune. Peralta knows this season will be tough, especially since Wolfsburg has only played in the Champions League twice in the past 10 years, and the players need to gain experience. Certainly, Napoli is not the ideal opponent to start this journey against. Antonio Conte's team, now reunited with Osimhen, is aiming for trophies. Peralta is also well aware that they'll have to contend with the 12th man, the 60,000 Napoli fans filling the stadium to cheer their team to victory. Victor Osimhen, after a season away from home, has apologized to his fans and his previous behavior and declares that he wants to win them back by playing at the absolute best. He has already scored 4 goals in the league. Wolfsburg, on the other hand, is determined to give their all and to enjoy the long-awaited taste of Champions League football. Napoli starts well, first hitting the crossbar with Anguissa and then with a header from Osimhen, which is well saved by Grabara. Antonio Conte is tough on his players, urging them to give their all, and shortly after, Kvaratskhelia wins a dangerous ball and passes it to Osimhen, who doesn't miss and puts Napoli ahead, sending the stadium into a frenzy. The Wolves respond, and from a corner, Roth tries to surprise Meret, but the goalkeeper makes a great save to keep his team in the game. In the second half, Napoli continues to press, and about 10 minutes from the end, Osimhen scores a second goal, sealing the game and making it 2-0. A baptism of fire for Peralta, who couldn't contain Antonio Conte's team. "We lost to a very good opponent," he says, "and the next ones will be tough too. We need to give our best." In the league, however, Wolfsburg remains unbeaten with 3 wins from 3 games and sit at the top of the table. They now face their third match in 7 days against a Hoffenheim side eager for points. The Wolves quickly create a beautiful team play, a ball circulation in midfield that ends with a key pass from Maier to Thiago Tomas, who scores with his left foot into the top corner to put Wolfsburg ahead. In the second half, new signing Vélez assists Tomas, who doubles the lead, beating the goalkeeper to make it 2-0. Then, buoyed by his brace, the Portuguese forward gets greedy and scores a ridiculous goal, chipping the goalkeeper to complete his hat-trick in the best possible way. Tomas has started the season in superb form, and he continues like this, Peralta thinks it will be hard to keep him unless he helps us win some trophies. Despite the loss to Napoli, the dressing room seems to have regained its spirit, and even at training, everything seems to be going well. For Peralta and Bale, it's important that players maintain the spirit, especially since the next game is against a direct competitor for the title, RB Leipzig. At the Red Bull Arena, however, it takes the home side just 2 minutes to take the lead with a header from Diogo Jota, immediately setting the course of the match in their favor. Ten minutes later, Baumgartner scores a second goal. It looks very bleak for Wolfsburg, but they respond, and in the 40th minute, thanks to a deflection, Maxi Arnold pulls one back, making it 2-1. After the break, the Wolves come out strong, and Tomas is launched into the box and beats Gulakshi to score the equalizer. The game is back on, it's all to play for, Peralta thinks, but just 2 minutes later, Šeško, like last year, scores to make it 3-2 and put Leipzig back in front, and soon after, he assists Baumgartner, who scores to make it 4-2. Wolfsburg doesn't give up though, they want to show they are still in the match, and a few minutes later, Ugrinic finds Mecha, who scores from an offside line to make it 4-3, crucial for their hopes of a comeback. But in the dying moments, Diogo Jota scores a counter-attack goal to make it 5-3, sending the home fans into delirium, while Wolfsburg's exhausted players see their position at the top of the table slip away. Wolfsburg lost, but they fought until the end, and this season, Tomas looks set to score even more than 25 goals he scored last year. Now, it's time to return to Champions League action. The next opponent is Anderlecht, and Wolfsburg cannot afford to drop any points under any circumstances. Peralta and Bale rally the players in the locker room, emphasizing the need for 3 points to get back on track and aim for a top spot in the table. However, in front of the home fans, it is the visitors who take the lead after less than a quarter of an hour, with Dolberg surprising a shaky Grabara. Toward the end of the first half, Wolfsburg creates danger, with Vélez missing a 1-on-1 with the keeper, but Mudryk is there to pick up the rebound and equalize the game. In the second half, however, the much-anticipated goals do not arrive, and the match ends in a disappointing 1-1 draw. It's not a loss, but it's not enough to climb the table either. The fans applaud the team at the final whistle, offering their support for the players in this moment. In his press conference, Peralta thanks the fans, acknowledging how crucial their support will be in the upcoming games. Robin Knoche thanks the coach after the match for sending him on, confirming that he feels in great shape. Meanwhile, in the league, Adeyemi scored a hat-trick against Mainz. It's October 4th, and Wolfsburg faces Bochum, the surprise of the season so far. For Peralta, it's a special match, his 50th match in charge of Wolfsburg. However, the game starts terribly, with a goal from Dashner after less than 10 minutes. Bochum takes the lead and looks in great form, and just 5 minutes later, Gift Orban picks up the ball at the edge of the area and blasts into the net, making it 2-0. Captain Arnold, however, is the most determined, and after stealing a ball, he serves Thiago Tomas in the area, who, after a less than perfect touch, still manages to score and make it 2-1. Right before half-time, Roth dribbles into the box and is brought down by the opposing defender. Mecha steps out to take it, looks the goalkeeper in the eye, and sends him the wrong way. 2-2, the Wolves have equalized. But just 2 minutes later, on the edge of the offside line, Gift Orban receives the ball, goes one-on-one with the keeper and doesn't miss, making it 3-2 for Bochum. A minute later, still shaken, Wolfsburg allows Sissoko to score a sensational goal, making it 4-2. At half-time, the team is given a stern talking to by their coach, who demands a different attitude. Minutes after returning to the field, Tomas scores the goal to make it 4-3, immediately reopening the match, but it's a nightmare day for the Wolves, who are unlucky on a corner kick, conceding another goal from Orban on a rebound into an empty net. However, the Wolves don't give up, and a few minutes later, following a nice exchange between Tomas and Mecha, this latter scores to make it 5-4. In their attempt to equalize, the Wolves push forward, but unfortunately for them, Orban scores his 4th goal of the day, a phenomenal striker who practically wins the game on his own. 8 goals scored, but 11 conceded in the last 2 league matches for Wolfsburg. Something is not working, admits Peralta, but the team spirit is right, and we will bounce back. With one more game played, Wolfsburg remains at the top of the table, despite conceding 13 goals. Thiago Tomas leads the scoring chart with 9 goals, followed by Gift Orban. In the assist chart, Šeško dominates with 4 assists, followed by Ugrinic with 3. In training, Peralta is placing special emphasis on the defensive phase, which has been far too leaky in recent matches for a team aiming for the top of the table. Against Stuttgart, after 15 minutes, the usual Mecha lays it off for the usual Thiago Tomas, who scores with his right foot, beating the opposing goalkeeper and make it 1-0. The game offers little else. A hard-fought and crucial win, but it has drained the players, and Peralta must take this into account with the important Champions League match coming up against Midtjylland. The team needs to win. After dropping points against Anderlecht, there can be no more mistakes. The home side, however, starts well, and after 5 minutes, Sung immediately puts Grabara under pressure. A few minutes later, with a bit of luck and 2 rebounds in his favor, the South Korean makes it 1-0. Wolfsburg looks very vulnerable, and 10 minutes later, Shimshir scores the 2nd goal, freezing the green and white fans who have traveled from Germany. Soon after, the Wolves try to respond, but Mudrik's right-footed shot is saved by the opposing goalkeeper. Shortly after, Mudrik provides the assist for a spectacular goal from Thiago Tomas, who adjusts in mid-air in the penalty box and beats the goalkeeper with a bicycle kick. Wolfsburg shows unity and determination, but lately luck seems to have abandoned them, and so, after 3 lucky rebounds, Kuchta finds the ball at his feet and extends the lead, making it 3-1. Midtjylland then closes up defensively, and it's only 10 minutes from the end, after a long pass from Brandt, that Thiago Tomas scores another great goal to pull one back. Unfortunately, it is not enough to avoid a 2nd defeat in the Champions League for Wolfsburg, who have earned a meager single point from 3 games. The players go to a away section and applaud their fans who travel Denmark, apologizing for the result. The situation in Europe, after just 3 matches, already seems compromised for Wolfsburg, and online, doubts about Peralta's future of the bench begins to surface, with some even mentioning the possibility of his dismissal.